spotless babe entered our world, your glory there, not to be served but to serve and give your life that we might live. This is our God, the servant King. He calls us now to follow Him, to bring our life as a daily offering of worship to the servant King. There in the garden of tears, my heavy load He chose to bear. His heart with sorrow was torn, yet not my will but yours, He said. This is our God, the servant King. He calls us now to follow Him, to bring our lives as a day.
Good morning all, and welcome to Saturday, January the 9th. And if it's not too early or too late, I'd like to just say Happy New Year. Some of you may have already met me, and it's lovely to be with you again in the AVC benefice. I'm Ruth Crossland. I'm a licensed lay minister, usually working in a church in Bournemouth, but at the moment spending some time in the benefice in the Avon Valleys. And this morning I have with me Heather Clark, who I think many of you will know, and she's been kind enough to give us some time and a bit of conversation. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Yes, I'm Heather. I'm the church warden at Hyde, which is one of the churches in the Avon Valley benefice, and I'm one of the lay worship leaders as well.
It's lovely to see you. I think one of the first times we met was just in the middle of October, I think, when I came to have a little look round Hyde Church because we were going to jointly work together with an All Souls service. And I remember at that time, a big parcel had arrived and you were saying, oh no, it's the wrong parcel. Some sort of things had arrived that you were expecting to, I can't even really describe how they were at the time, sort of put together in the church to make people safe, weren't they?
Yes, that's right. Posts to make people safe as they walk down to the church centre. And they'd sent us once the wrong ones. Fortunately, they agreed they'd sent us the wrong ones, so I had no problem with them. But it was a bit of a disaster.
It's always a joy, isn't it, being a church warden? You never know what you might end up dealing with. You're still smiling, which is an important thing. Heather, it would be lovely just to give us a flavour, I think, of how you are where you are in your life, if I might say it like that. And I know, because we've had a conversation, that really you're a New Forest girl. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about your early life?
Yes, I always tell everybody that I'm a proper native because you have to live here for donkey's years to prove that. But I was born in the New Forest in Bransgore, although when I was a baby, and I don't remember it, my family were sent to Worcester because of the war. But then we came back to Bransgore, so I was brought up in Bransgore as well. So I feel very local. Yeah.
So Worcester might have been a shock if you'd remembered much about it, but coming back to Bransgore, it felt like coming back home again, perhaps.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I loved living there. My mother ran a little. Well, she didn't really. We had a governess.
Oh.
for some reason but my mother and the governess ran a sort of little preschool in the house.
Right.
And so I was schooled there until I was 6. And then I went to school where I was extremely unhappy. I think I told you about that.
Yes.
They put me in a class a year above myself. As I told you, not because I was particularly bright, but because I was particularly tall.
That seems an interesting way of deciding where a child should be in their education, doesn't it?
Yes.
According to their height.
Yeah. So I was very unhappy there. But and fortunately, one very brave teacher told my mother that she needed to move me to a different school. And then I was put in for a scholarship to Talbot Heath, which for me was transformational. Right. They were absolutely wonderful.
Talbot Heath School in Bournemouth, which I know quite well. And I think I might have said to you at some point, I couldn't get in there. I tried very hard because I knew that they played cricket. And I always fancied playing women's cricket.
All right.
I took the entrance exam on a number of occasions, but you know what? I just couldn't make the grade. Did you ever get to play cricket, Heather?
No, not that I remember.
Were you sporty?
Well, actually, I did get to play cricket when we moved to Bexhill, because the grammar school at Bexhill, which was a girls' grammar school next door to the boys' grammar school, and we did play cricket. And the boys also used to stand along the fence and jeer.
You talked briefly about how one school was particularly not affirming, but Talbot Heath is certainly transformational in your and you were redeemed to some extent by Talbot Heath.
I was. It was. I wasn't there for very long, really, but it was totally transformationally for me because I'd been because of the school. And the circumstances, I was very withdrawn, very shy, and I went to Talbot Heath, and they just somehow gave me total belief in myself. And it doesn't sound a big deal, but I read the lesson for the whole year group at the school carol service, and for me that was huge, absolutely huge. I would never have believed I could have done that.
Right.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, what a great skill those teachers must have had to be able to impart that kind of positive outlook to young girls in the school. I mean, it makes such a difference. I know later on in your life you became a teacher, but to actually be able to encourage young people to feel good about themselves is such a gift, isn't it?
Yes, it was huge. Absolutely huge. So
it strikes me that over the last few years we've had lots of issues to do with a lot of social media where young people have not felt good about themselves, and they found that really, really difficult to manage, haven't they? You know, this thing about having friends, as it were, and not having enough friends, I think is quite a challenge. So what an amazing, so forever you will be grateful for Talbot Heath.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Not everybody could say that about their school, but never mind, that's good. So then after going up to Bexhill, I think.
Yes, we moved to Bexhill. My father, who was in SRDE, had become such a nuisance because he was the secretary of the scientific union, the science, that they actually made him. They took him to London and made him. They put him in what now would be called. What would it be called? It was personnel anyway in those days.
Oh, right.
So they got him on the other side and stopped him being a nuisance.
There's a great lesson there, isn't there, for all of us? Do you push your troublemakers away, or do you bring them into the fold so you can keep an eye on what's going on?
Exactly. So he moved to London, and the family moved to Bexhill because my mother's family were all in Bexhill, so it seemed like a good idea. It was in fact a lousy idea, but there you go.
There we go. Sometimes we do what we think is right at the time, don't we? We've all been there, I think.
Yeah. So
after school, carrying on with your education, or what was?
Well, what happened? I mean, one of the reasons it became a lousy idea was my my father travelling up to London, of course, every day. We had my maiden aunts to live in the house, which was a bad idea. And my father decided he couldn't cope, and he found another lady and left home when I was 17. So, which was, to say the least, disruptive. So I'd seen it coming, and I took the civil service exam in the spring and got a place in the civil service. And I then did A-levels, but decided that I wouldn't take my university place because I wanted to be independent. And I then joined the Board of Trade. But before that, I'd, as many people do, lost my faith as a teenager, and especially with all that was going on. And I went to Lee Abbey on my own for a holiday, fortnight's holiday at Lee Abbey, which was a wonderful holiday. But also I was converted while I was at Lee Abbey. And when I came back to Bexhill, I said, well, I'm going to be baptized and confirmed in the Church of England, which I was baptized and confirmed by a lovely guy called Canon Griffiths. Yeah, that was very special.
Was your mother at all involved in the church? Was there a history?
Yes. In fact, interestingly, my church upbringing was very peculiar. I've been to everything from strict and peculiar, which nobody will know about these days, to
I don't know what that means.
No, you're very wise, don't know about it at all. My grandfather went to the tabernacle, that's what it was called.
Right, okay.
Anyway, so I'd done that, and my mother decided she was a Baptist at one point. But anyway, when I was baptized and confirmed, she decided also to be confirmed in the Church of England. So she, at the same time, also became a full member of the Church of England. So that was interesting.
Lovely. That's a lovely story with a lovely ending, really, isn't it? Yeah. Well, the ending, and also to some extent a beginning, because being a communicant member of the Church of England has been, I imagine, a huge, lengthy journey for you now because of where you are today, as it were.
Yeah. Obviously, I went to live in London when I started working in the Board of Trade, and went to St Paul's Onslow Square, which then sort of took over Holy Trinity Brompton.
Right.
And now it works alongside Holy Trinity. So it's been a long journey for St Paul's as well. But that's where I met Peter. And I did various things from St Paul's. I helped with a soup kitchen on the embankment. I was always rather amused by that because at the time I was being positively vetted by the civil service. That's when they're looking. I was going to work in the private office, and they have to do this PV to make sure you're suitable. And I thought if they were following me, they'd follow me down to the embankment, and all these old lags would be.
I suppose you might have been all right on your positive vetting because you weren't actually taking the soup yourself, were you? You were actually giving it out to others. So probably the civil service might have thought, oh, well, she's got a sense of social conscience. She's the kind of woman we want. Yes, one would like to think so.
They didn't cut me off in my prime, so
No, absolutely not. So did you enjoy working for the Board of Trade? I mean,
I loved it, actually.
Whether it sounds interesting or not.
I really loved it. My favourite part of it was when I worked with commercial relations with India and Pakistan, which was a fascinating job, really lovely job. And I just happened to be in the seat when, you won't remember it, but Goa used to be a Portuguese, under Portuguese ownership, and India decided they'd had enough of that and it was theirs, which left England in rather a difficult position. And we decided that we would give India de facto recognition, but not de jure recognition. and that caused all sorts of problems for trade. I just happened to be sitting in the seat and became the expert on trade with Goa.
My gosh.
Which was quite fun. It got me a promotion. So
right. And have you ever been?
No, sadly I haven't. I desperately wanted to go to Nepal, which was also one of my responsibilities. And my husband's been to Nepal, but I haven't. It's really annoying.
Right. I suppose we have to say not yet, don't we? Because you never know.
I don't think so, not now.
There's been some wonderful programs on in the last few days. I don't know whether you've watched them. Michael Palin has been going through some of his trips through Nepal and the Himalayas, and
it's amazing. One of the youngsters we had in our youth group, we ran a youth group, Peter and I, for years at Christchurch in Purley when we got married. One of them went out there as a medical missionary. So continued my relationship with Nepal at second hand, as it were, which was lovely.
Yeah, vicariously, as they say.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a bad way forward. Then presumably at some point in your life, I think you thought, well, I've done Goa, I've done Nepal, perhaps I'd try something completely different. And you moved somehow into education.
Well, what happened is I stopped working with the Board of Trade when my first daughter was born. They did offer me a year out, paid, but I thought, no, I want to bring up my own children. So I came out, left the Board of Trade, and then I had Jen. Then I had 3 miscarriages, and then our second daughter was born, which was wonderful. And as they grew older, I grew very fascinated by the way that they learned. And so I decided that what I would do would be to become a teacher, because obviously I could then both be available to them and also pursue this education, which had become fascinating to me by then.
Yeah. And teacher training college, or how did you?
Yes, Southwark, what is now Southwark University, did a special course for mums.
Right. So
I could collect the kids from school and do all of that and work when they'd gone to bed, and it worked very well. They were very good, and if they weren't very good, we reminded them.
There comes Talbot Heath storming back in again.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, letting people know what's expected of them in the right way. Quite so.
So that was interesting, because of course it was at Southwark, so we had some very interesting teacher training placements. Yes. One at the Elephant, which really was interesting.
Right. Very cosmopolitan, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. And actually the other students were also very cosmopolitan, which was a wonderful eye-opener. Yeah.
What was your favourite subject, or did you train to teach a particular subject, or were you primary school?
Well, my specialist subject was, at the time, was English, which I absolutely loved. I would have done English if I'd gone to uni at the right time. That was going to be my subject. So that was my special subject then. But once I started teaching, I then did 2 postgraduate degrees in maths education. Because the way children learn maths is absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
And I got really hooked on that.
Did you ever know about Cuisenaire rods?
Yes.
I also trained to teach maths.
Right.
I'm a primary school teacher. That was my special subject.
Yes, mine was primary.
Yeah, and I remember being fascinated. Some of you will have no idea what we're talking about, but Cuisenaire rods were little wooden blocks.
That's right.
Different lengths according to the number. So a number 10 was much longer, 10 times as long as a number 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
right. All different colours, and they helped children to add and divide and subtract and all of that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I always thought that was a magical way of doing mathematics, as you say.
Yeah.
So you have to mention the word, don't you, to many people, even adults who say, no, I can't do maths. I can't do maths at all. I've got a mental block about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a shame, because I think there's very few people who really can't if they're if they're introduced to it in the right way. And it is absolutely fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
So training to teach, then first jobs, and then ultimately carrying on for quite a career in education, I believe.
Yes, I started in a big primary school, and then sort of gently moved, and finally ended up. Well, I ended up as a deputy head with a really lovely guy, and I after a couple of years I said, "Can you give me a reference? I want to go for this headship." And he looked at. He said, "No." He said, "If you're going for a headship, it's time I retired, and I want you to go for the headship for this school."
Right. And where was this school in the end?
In Carshalton.
In Carshalton.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So I'm still in touch with him. He was an interesting guy, mad keen on opera. He's had a dreadful year because he hasn't been able to go to the opera.
No. Is he able to do some of the technology that we're all doing? Is he able?
Yes, a bit. Yes, he's competent with that. Yeah.
Yes, because there's a lot of it I understand online. I'm not a great. I don't know much about.
But he's replayed all his Valkyries and all the rest of it, apparently.
So in retirement, you're thinking, well, we're obviously going to stay where we are, or obviously not.
No, we lived in Purley because it was convenient, and we're very happy in Purley. We had a lovely garden and so on, and good friends. But I'd seen people retire in Purley, and it hadn't been a good idea. And I had always wanted to go back to live in a village anyway. So my husband, very bravely, because he'd never lived in a village, agreed that we would go and live in a village. Then we had to decide where, which was a difficult decision. But we've finally decided that really the New Forest would be lovely. We spent ages looking in the south of the New Forest, which was very expensive. And we'd just about given up, and I said to Peter, I've never been north of Ringwood, because as a child that's where the bus stopped. So that's as far as I got. So I said, shall we go north of Ringwood? Because what we were looking for was a village near a sort of small market town. So we went up to Fordingbridge, which looked like a very nice town. And I looked at the map and I said, well, there's a little ring of villages up there. Shall we go and look up there? So we did. We went to the Foresters for lunch, and the house was advertised in the Foresters. And I said to the girl behind the bar, do you happen to know where this is? And she said, oh, yes. She said, if you go there, the owner will be in the garden just now. So that was it, really.
It was meant to be, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So you saved someone saved the estate agent's fees, and the deal was done. And you live in this house now.
We live in this house now, and we fell in love with the area and the view, but what we didn't know is that the community and the church was so fantastic. We moved here and we went to the village church, not really expecting very much. But we had such a warm welcome, and it was such a lovely congregation. That was it. We stopped.
I have to say, I came to Carol's on the Common, and I was amazed at the number of people that were there. What a wonderful community event.
It was fantastic.
Just fantastic. I've never experienced anything like it, apart from, being at sort of Greenbelt, the Christian festival. That number of people coming out on a cold winter's day to join together and sing carols was stunning. Really,
it was wonderful, wasn't it? It was 280 people there, which we were only a tiny village, but it has a fantastic community. I spent yesterday on a Zoom meeting with various people from the community, working out how we could help people during this lockdown, this new lockdown.
Yes.
And it's not just the churches, it's right across the community. We have a village hall. Peter was chair of the village hall for a bit when we first moved here. And there's a very good neighbourhood watch, which does not just neighbourhood watch, but just about everything else. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Really fantastic.
I think one of the things that these lockdowns may have done for even those of us who live in the towns is develop a bit more of a neighbourhood community connection.
Yeah.
I live on the edge of West Christchurch, which in no way is rural, but I now know the neighbours much more than I did when we first moved here.
Yes.
There have been moments where we've all been outside and we've been clapping or we've been celebrating something or other, and people are starting to talk to each other, which is what you experience in a village, but in the towns we don't normally experience that. So
I think a lot of people
interesting times. Yeah.
Which is,
Heather, I think we have chatted quite well, and I think we're coming to the end of our conversation, which has been lovely. Thank you so much for saying yes. I really do appreciate it. I did ask you if you might share with us a couple of your favourite things, one of which would perhaps be your favourite hymn, and and also your favourite Bible verse. So, yes. Heather.
Well, my favourite hymn is The Servant King. It's a wonderful hymn anyway, but the phrase that always sticks in my mind is he whose hands flung stars into space to cruel nails. I can't remember what the next words are, but it obviously I actually believe in evolution and all the rest of it, but I do believe that God is the creator God, and that his love was such that he came and died for our sinful world. Is
beyond comprehension, isn't it?
Yes.
I think.
And I think that hymn just catches it, and I love it.
Yeah.
So that would be my favourite hymn, and the verse goes along with that really, which is John 3:16. God so loved the world, and it is the world that he sent his only son. And I think those two things sort of encapsulate my faith, I think.
Heather, it's been a delight this morning. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again, either via Zoom or in person when the times allow. Keep well, keep safe, and bless you for your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. And can I wish everybody a very happy new year as well?
Of course you may. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.